Imagine leaving behind everything familiar, your country, culture, and comforts, to dedicate your life to a foreign land. That's exactly what Sister Nivedita did when she answered the call of Swami Vivekananda. In today's episode, we explore the story of Margaret Noble, who transformed into Sister Nivedita, a beacon of hope and dedication to India. In this episode of Swami Vivekananda's life, we dive into his profound influence on his Western disciples, particularly Margaret Noble, later known as Sister Nivedita. We'll witness how Swami Vivekananda molded her into a devoted follower of Indian culture and spirituality, challenging her deeply ingrained beliefs and preparing her for a life of service in India. Let's embark on this remarkable journey of transformation, dedication, and unwavering faith. Miss Noble came to India on January 28, 1898, to work with Miss Muller for the education of Indian women. The Swami warmly introduced her to the public of Calcutta as a gift of England to India, and in March made her take the vow of brahmacharya, that is to say, the life of a religious celibate devoted to the realization of God. He also gave her the name of Nivedita, the dedicated, by which she has ever since been cherished by the Indians with deep respect and affection. The ceremony was performed in the chapel of the monastery. He first taught her how to worship Shiva, and then made the whole ceremony culminate in an offering at the feet of Buddha. "Go thou," he said, "and follow him who was born and gave his life for others 500 times before he attained the vision of the Buddha." The Swami now engaged himself in the training of Sister Nivedita, along with the other Western disciples. And certainly it was a most arduous task. They were asked to associate intimately with the Holy Mother, the widow of Sri Ramakrishna, who at once adopted them as her children. Then the Swami would visit them almost daily to reveal to them the deep secrets of the Indian world, its history, folklore, customs, and traditions. Mercilessly, he tried to uproot from their minds all preconceived notions and wrong ideas about India. He wanted them to love India as she was at the present time, with her poverty, ignorance, and backwardness, and not the India of yore, when she had produced great philosophies, epics, dramas, and religious systems. It was not always easy for the Western disciples to understand the religious ideals and forms of worship of the Hindus. For instance, one day in the great Kali temple of Kolkata, one Western lady shuddered at the sight of the blood of the goat sacrificed before the deity and exclaimed, "Why is there blood before the goddess?" Quickly the Swami retorted, "Why not a little blood to complete the picture?" The disciples had been brought up in the tradition of Protestant Christianity, in which the Godhead was associated only with what was benign and beautiful, and Satan with the opposite. With a view to Hinduizing their minds, the Swami asked his Western disciples to visit Hindu ladies at their homes and to observe their dress, food, and customs, which were radically different from their own. Thus he put to a severe test their love for Vedanta and India. In the West, they had regarded the Swami as a prophet showing them the path of liberation, and as a teacher of the universal religion. But in India, he appeared before them, in addition, in the role of a patriot, an indefatigable worker for the regeneration of his motherland. The Swami began to teach Nivedita to lose herself completely in the Indian consciousness. She gradually adopted the food, clothes, language, and general habits of the Hindus. "You have to set yourself," he said to her, "to Hinduize your thoughts, your needs, your conceptions, your habits. Your life, internal and external, has to become all that an orthodox Brahmin brahmacharinis ought to be. The method will come to you if you only desire it sufficiently. But you have to forget your past and cause it to be forgotten." He wanted her to address the Hindus in terms of their own orthodoxy. Swami Vivekananda would not tolerate in his Western disciples any trace of chauvinism, any patronizing attitude or stupid criticism of the Indian way of life. They could serve India only if they loved India, and they could love India only if they knew India, her past glories and her present problems. Thus later, he took them on his trip to northern India, including Almora and Kashmir, and told them of the sanctity of Varanasi and the magnificence of Agra and Delhi. He related to them the history of the Mughal emperors and the Rajput heroes, and also described the peasant's life, the duties of a farm housewife, and the hospitality of poor villagers to wandering monks. The teacher and his disciples saw together the sacred rivers, the dense forests, the lofty mountains, the sun-baked plains, the hot sands of the desert, and the gravel beds of the rivers, all of which had played their parts in the creation of Indian culture. And the Swami told them that in India, custom and culture were one. The visible manifestations of the culture were the system of caste, the duties determined by the different stages of life, the respect of parents as incarnate gods, the appointed hours of religious service, the shrine used for daily worship, the chanting of the Vedas by the Brahmin children, the eating of food with the right hand and its use in worship and japa, the austerities of Hindu widows, the kneeling in prayer of the Muslims, wherever the time of prayer might find them, and the ideal of equality practiced by the followers of Muhammad. Nivedita possessed an aggressively Occidental and intensely English outlook. It was not easy for her to eradicate instinctive national loyalties and strong personal likes and dislikes. A clash between the teacher and the disciple was inevitable. Ruthlessly, the Swami crushed her pride in her English upbringing. Perhaps at the same time, he wanted to protect her against the passionate adoration she had for him. Nivedita suffered bitter anguish. The whole thing reached its climax while they were traveling together sometime after in the Himalayas. One day, Miss MacLeod thought that Nivedita could no longer bear the strain and interceded kindly and gravely with the Swami. He listened, Sister Nivedita wrote later, and went away. At evening, however, he returned, and finding us together on the veranda, he turned to her, Miss MacLeod, and said with the simplicity of a child, "You were right. There must be a change. I am going away to the forests to be alone, and when I come back, I shall bring peace." Then he turned away and saw that above us the moon was new, and a sudden exultation came into his voice as he said, "See, the Mohammedans think much of the new moon. Let us also, with the new moon, begin a new life." As he said these words, he lifted his hand and blessed his rebellious disciple, who by this time was kneeling before him. It was assuredly a moment of wonderful sweetness of reconciliation. That evening, in meditation, Nivedita found herself gazing deep into an infinite good, to the recognition of which no egotistic reasoning had led her. And, she wrote, "I understood for the first time that the greatest teachers may destroy in us a personal relation, only in order to bestow the impersonal vision in its place." To resume our story, on March 30th, 1898, the Swami left for Darjeeling, for he badly needed a change to the cool air of the Himalayas. Hardly had he begun to feel the improvement in his health when he had to come down to Kolkata, where an outbreak of plague was striking terror. Immediately he made plans for relief work with the help of the members of the monastery and volunteers from Kolkata. When a brother disciple asked him where he would get funds, the Swami replied, "Why, we shall sell if necessary the land which has just been purchased for the monastery. We are sannyasins. We must be ready to sleep under the trees and live on alms as we did before. Must we care for the monastery and possessions when by disposing of them we could relieve thousands of helpless people suffering before our own eyes?" Fortunately, this extreme step was not necessary. The public gave him money for the relief work. In our next episode, we will delve deeper into Swami Vivekananda's extraordinary journey as he steps up to confront a deadly plague in Calcutta, demonstrating the essence of true Vedanta in action. We'll travel with him to the serene hills of Almora and the picturesque valleys of Kashmir, where he imparts profound lessons to his disciples amidst personal grief and introspection. Witness how the Swami's life was a remarkable blend of compassion, wisdom, and renunciation, and how he continued to inspire his disciples in the most challenging times. Don't miss this powerful chapter of resilience and spiritual strength. Thank you for listening till the end. Please subscribe, turn on the notifications, like, comment, and share with your friends. This will help more listeners to discover our channel and content.